Egrets and herons belong to the family Ardiidae, and they are characterised as waders, having a long bill and large spread out toes. The rear toe, or the great toe, is the same length as the 3 front toes. So this is a pelicaniform type foot without any webbing. So these birds belong to the order Pelicaniformes. And today there is one heron, or egret, that we want to look at. And this is the reef egret. A stocky bird, and compared to some of the long-necked and long-legged herons and egrets, it has relatively shorter legs and neck. And as the name suggests, it is found on shorelines and reefs, a little different than most of the egrets and herons that prefer the calmer brackish waters of lakes and estuarine areas. So this bird is found in coastal areas where it is salt water. After reef and rocky shorelines, the next most favourite habitat for the reef heron is in saltwater mangroves. This bird is often called the eastern reef egret. Other terminology would have it called the Pacific heron. Heron and egret are really synonymous terms. Generally, egret is referred to for the white birds, but with this reef egret or reef heron, there are 2 morphologies. A dark morphology, which is grey, and there's sometimes a little bit of white going up the front of the neck, as you can see in this bird. And then there is the white morphology. Both are the same species, Egretta sacra. So this morphological difference between a grey and a white reef heron is not a species or geographical separation, so for all purposes they are exactly the same bird, and we refer to the grey morph and the white morph for the variations in the morphology of the reef egret. Saying that, both the dark and the white morph are found far more in tropical areas. Coming down into the temperate climes, it is unusual to see the white morphology bird. Most of the birds to the southern coastline of Australia are the dark morphs, the white morphology birds being found mostly along the tropical coastlines. Their habitat is the eastern Pacific, from China down through the Malay Peninsula, Indonesia, PNG, Australia and Oceania. Here on the Barrier Reef at Green Island, looking out over the southern reef towards Fitzroy Island, you can see the white dots out on the reef. This is the white reef heron. But the dark morphology birds are rather cryptic. But look at this bird on the foreshore. This is the dark morphology or the grey reef heron. And here on the Barrier Reef in a tropical environment at low tide on the reef we can find both the white and the dark morphology birds, coexisting and feeding in the same area. For those birding enthusiasts who want to see them, the southern aspect of Green Island is a great opportunity. And when visiting Green Island, you will also have the privilege of seeing the buff-banded rail. For here on Green Island, the density of these birds is the highest in the world. Getting back to the herons and egrets, let's just think about how these birds catch their prey. The greater majority of these birds eat fish. The long-necked herons are very effective at using their neck, with that long cervical vertebrate giving a bit of a whip to the catching momentum. They can penetrate into the waters with superb vision and catch fish, as we've seen here with this white-faced heron. And now the white-necked heron, very similar to the white-faced heron. Slow walking, then tilting the body, then using the whip of the neck with the long cervical vertebrae, catches prey, not by spearing it, but by capturing at the tip of the bill. So all the long-legged, long-necked herons and egrets adopt a similar posture while catching fish. And with these long-necked, long-legged birds, the prey caught is generally vertically underneath the bill at the time of the neck lunge. But now look at the striated heron. The posture is hunched and slightly forward. His legs are bent, and he catches prey with a forward, not downward, extension of the neck. And the prey is in front of the bird, not below its head. And with this striated heron, the fish catching technique is very similar to what we find in the reef heron. But there is one further digression with the reef heron. The striated heron walks up very slowly and sneaks up on its prey, but the reef heron does a very fast trot, and then it may slow down before it does the final pounce. This all suggests that the acuity of vision of a reef heron is superior to that of the other herons and egrets. Just watch the catch on this dark morph reef heron as it catches a small fish several metres away in a wave. A study in Polynesia suggested that the reef heron finds fishing areas when it flies looking down at the ocean. The only other egrets that I have seen fishing on the fly are the little egret and the pied egret. Unlike the little egret, they really don't flap their wings when they're stalking prey. They just go into that crouched position. For balance, there is mild extension of the reef egret's wings, but no flapping as such. When not fishing, the reef egrets roost. They may roost on the beach, on the sand, but usually it is more commonly roosting in a tree. These birds not only roost in trees, but they also nest in trees. But on some coral cay atolls where they breed, if there are no trees, it has been reported that they will nest on the beach or on rocks. After roosting, it's back to fishing for the reef egrets. And as this bird walks down to the water, notice the long toes. There are 4 toes, all long, and this wide radial spread allows the bird to walk comfortably over mud. So though they are reef egrets, they are also waders and will feed on benthic invertebrates, as well as fish caught in the receding tide of mudflats. Well, let's head out to the reef and look again at some of the features of the reef egret. And here you can see a dark morph and a white morph bird flying. The dark morph appears to be following behind the white morph, and what it's doing is chasing that white morph bird away from its feeding territory. These birds are very territorial when it comes to food. The dark morph bird is even more territorial than the white morph. Here a dark morph reef egret has found a good fishing site. A white morph bird flies in, but the dark morph bird says you are a little bit too close, and a chase off results. Reef egrets are flock birds. They are very loose in the flock structure, unless they come together while roosting. But see all these little white dots and the occasional dark morph bird? They are fairly widely scattered when they are feeding on the reef. A reef egret, standing on the mudflats at his favourite fishing spot, waiting for the tide just to be right to catch a feed. The tide has come in. The pelicans are all just standing with the seagulls, but a little egret decides that he wants to make his way down to the foreshore where the fresh water meets the sea. Whoops! What's that coming towards him? It was the reef heron. The dark morph tolerated the white-faced herons, the great egrets, but not the little egret, for he is a superb fisher person. And so the dark morph retraces his flight back to his favourite fishing site. On behalf of Plumes of Oz, thank you for watching this video on the reef heron. If you would like to subscribe, you'll get notification of our next video, which will be on the stone curlews of Australia.